I'm good, mate. Thank you. How are you? At work.
Yes, of
But
course,
yeah,
golf. That's
April.
right. That's
April
right.
was the.
That's right. That's right. Of course. How you been? What's been going on?
I've been gradually thinking about RC cars very slowly, playing a lot of golf. Um, my Trua broke, which disappointed me greatly. So I've managed to get the spare part now, 100 odd quid, and we'll rebuild that. Got my Yokomo all ready for the 12th season, and yeah, raring to go. Might even get my buggy out at some point.
Yeah, the true what is it with the true? I mean, it seems such a simple bit of kit, right? I mean, it's just a freaking lathe that goes backwards and forwards. And they cost like 500 quid, 600 quid, and they always break down, don't they? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it seems like they do.
yeah, it's like an automotive. I think it's like a door lock relay off a BMW that they've used, and they're not sealed, so they fill up with dust
Right.
and then stop working.
Do you not think it might be an idea that they should have sealed that up?
Yeah, who knew? Just a little bit of gunk might have solved the problem. I'm gunking this one before I put it in. But yeah, I drilled holes in it. Yeah, part number gave me some advice and said, you know, drill holes in the relays, squirt some Worth in them, and see if you can clean them out. And it did work for enough to get me to the national, but then yeah, packed up
Yeah.
again shortly after.
Yeah. Well, they're a shocking bit of kit for how much they cost, and maybe they'll improve over time. But don't hold your breath.
Yeah,
Well, did you catch any of the 12th GP action last week?
yeah, I saw a bit. I watched the only talk I saw the whole of was David's one about the Destiny, which I enjoyed immensely. And I must say, I think it was interesting because it was like I've seen the car loads over the time that it's been developed, and you know, sitting next to Tony Wade when he had his Eastbourne, you know, got a good look. Um, and there were aspects of it that I was like, yeah, you know, that's cool, but it's not really for me. The damper in particular was just like, yeah, you know, it's something different, it's cool, but it's not a shock. It's not, you know, why would I want to use it? And then hearing David talk about it, what went into the design ethos and the whole ethos of the whole car, and especially talking about how it damps equally in all directions, was just like a piece of genius. And it's almost like if you hadn't have done that, I definitely wouldn't have known about it. And it was like a really good advert for the car and really getting across what it was all about. So I was impressed. I liked it.
Yeah, honestly, when he was talking, I'm glad you said that because when he was talking about the damper, it was like, take my money.
Yeah, yeah,
Which, you know, it makes so much sense that wherever it rolls and pivots, it's going to do exactly the same thing. I mean,
yeah,
you've got that effective section, haven't you? You've got that's going up and down the car, and then you've got that sideways. But of course, you've got that bit there that is completely well void of the same force that it's exerting on the corners of the car and the front of the car
yeah,
as directly running up and down the damper.
yeah. Well, you get a different diagonal damping. Like there's basically infinite damping, right, in
Yeah.
between whatever you've got in the front to back and whatever you've got side to side. So yeah, difficult to get it consistent. I think that was the key to it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it's clever that they did that with the front end as well. I never really liked that front end. Oh, that's not true. The front end isn't for me because, like you, I like to mess about with stuff,
Mm.
and I'm obsessive about things being right and being, you know, exact. But I think for like I would say, if you were going to buy that car, don't waste your money buying camber and caster gauges. Just put whatever pills in there that David tells you is the ones to run, and then leave it as it is, because it's you might be like half a degree out or something from where it says in the manual, but it doesn't make an ounce of difference. It's only like perverts like us that have to tweak everything.
Yeah, and that's the way the cars are going, isn't it? I mean, fucking hell. I mean, just stick it on the deck and go race it. And I've got so much I want to share with you, because I mean, we've talked about modified, and man alive, that's a good topic that we need to revisit, and I need to eat some humble pie. I really do.
No,
So
I was all set up for making that pie for you, mate.
so if you are watching and you've tuned in, there's that nice few. We've got 20 of you watching. If you've got any questions for Ant or me and that you want us to cover, throw them in. We'll obviously be very happy to talk about it. But I think, it was... So there was a chap, and I can't remember his name. Let me just very quickly, let me just find his name, because it'll be on the sheet here. Stuart Block, his name was, or still is actually. David said he bought a car. He put it down the track. Great first time out. Gave it a few whacks. Put it a little bit out of shape, and it just got progressively worse. And then he tried the Destiny, put it down, took it for a couple of meetings, gave it a load of whacks, and it was exactly the same. And I think that's ultimately, we'll keep on going on about this, but the whole point is that it needs to be robust. It doesn't need to be for perverts like you and I, because perverts like you and I are few and far between.
Yeah.
Compared to the new generation that we're trying to attract. And I think that's something that I haven't really necessarily put across, and I think people don't talk about it enough. All of those people that are racing at the moment, actually, we're not trying to attract those, are we? So whatever we put on as an event or as a car or as merchandise or whatever, we're not trying to really appeal to them. We're trying to appeal to a new generation, a new breed of people, rather than just trying to reinvigorate the people that are there. Well, the people that are there are already there, right? We're trying to... So it's cars like the Destiny, cars like... I don't know whether you say the Automatics, but potentially the Automatics. Definitely the Schumacher, the way X-Ray have gone. They're all going for the simpletons of the world, which I absolutely am one of those people, but still have that pervert tweaking element that I enjoy.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, David saying, he said it a couple of times about a couple of things. He said, this isn't slower. Like the thing that they were doing wasn't slower. And I think we might have talked about this before. I don't know if we talked about it in company of others, but I'm not entirely sure about cars going away from camber gain and having fixed top arms and all that. I don't... Like, to me... that almost seems like a backward step. Well, it definitely is an engineering backward step. But I wonder what is holding the cars back? Like, what is the thing that means that we can do away with camber gain? Is it that we've got a lack of traction? Is it that if we were in a different environment that camber gain would work better? We were talking today about the difference in grip between America and Japan. Just with them using SXT in the States and them using I can't remember what it's called, funny grip or whatever it's called in Japan, the oily stuff. It just creates a different set of circumstances. So I just wonder if the simplicity is just like, we don't need this stuff anymore. We can make it more simple because it's no slower. I think that's an interesting thing.
Again, it certainly hasn't. We haven't seen that all of a sudden the people that have gone back to simple cars or gone to simple cars have become slower for it. But interestingly, and this is something Andy Thompson drew comment towards, that when he watched Alex going around and when he watched Ollie's car going around, he said that Ollie's car looked way more nimble and reactive compared to Alex's car, and also cars on track in stock. It looked more agile. Now, whether that is because he's got more of a traditional front end, he's got more of a Alex has, but not quite the same front end as he. I wonder if there is something in there, but again, it depends because Alex gave it a whack, and he had to retire in his second run. Could that ultimately, in a world championship having a tap again? Doesn't apply to the likes of us, but in the same token, at the other end of the spectrum, you've got your elite that one tap throws them out of winning a world championship. At the other end of the spectrum, one tap makes that guy not finish his run and makes his car nose up. So both ends of the spectrum are losing out, aren't they, by having something that might be slightly better, but actually the downsides are more heavily weighed.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that's the front end though. I would say pod is the thing. Now, I have to say, like, I hit stuff, right? And I have the odd flinch now and again where I crash into things. And I very, very rarely have tweak problems with pods. And a few times I've had a whack and I've kind of wiggled the car around afterwards and it seemed all right. And I haven't bothered rebuilding my pod, even at big meetings. Yeah. And I know that I'll get, a lot of stick over it. But I don't think it's as bad as all that. I don't think it needs that amount of maintenance. At Eastbourne National, I know my car wasn't very good and I had some pretty wild settings on it because I wanted to try stuff out. But I never really touched my car. And I certainly didn't touch the X-Ray. I just gave it to you. But my Yokomo, I honestly didn't do anything to it. I didn't rebuild anything. I just slapped it down and it was exactly the same as it was previous run. So, yeah, I think that there's a middle ground. There's like people like me that I know when it's broke and I know what to do about it, but I'm not world champ material. So it probably doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, I definitely spent my whole time rebuilding a car if it's got a pod on it. I can't help it because it feels like it's the right thing to do. And every time I put a pod car down, it feels like the front wheel isn't connected to the rear wheel, which is not a nice feeling. And then as soon as I don't put a pod car down, like a solid chassis, like a Schumacher, it feels like the front's connected to the rear more. It's bizarre. Well, did you manage to see some of the results from the weekend?
I saw some, not many.
So we've got the old results up in front of us from qualifying. I suppose this is obviously stock. I mean, there's probably no real surprises in the probably 4, 5, 6, I guess.
What car was Aaron Morley using?
He's using an Automatics. Yeah, so
he's spread of cars there in the top 10.
Yeah, so you got Roche, Destiny, Automatics, Destiny, Roche, Automatics, Schumacher. I mean, when was the last time you saw only 2 Schumachers in a top 10 of the 12th event?
Yeah, interesting.
James Stewart has just chirped in. Welcome along, James. Nice to have you. And big thanks to James. He did a lot of the commentating at the GP, and he was very extravagant with some of the phraseology that he was working with. He said, I think 3 world champions and Stuart Cartwright in one of my modified finals, which was very nice of him to point out. So James Stewart says, if you don't have the means to fix it available to you, don't check it at the track. That's probably quite not bad analysis. That if it's bent but you can't fix it, you're better off not knowing at that point. Well, I mean, that is true. I'm not sure how much I subscribe to that. I mean, I get it. but I'd rather throw it in the bin and go home than drive around with a bent car. I mean, it's a hard one, that, isn't it? But yeah, I certainly get his point. I do get his point. Absolutely, it's a good point there, John. John. Alex Robertson was a bit of a surprise. I mean, he's I've seen him at a few events. Young lad. Green, I would say. He's quite green driver. And maybe we'll talk about that in a moment, because I've got a video of Ollie Payne losing his shit on the rostrum in the first final, and there's reasons for that, and I thought it'd be interesting to review that. But Alex is clearly very fast. He was using automatics. Mark Jordan, James Eves. James Eves is another guy that's gone from being a Schumacher guy down to a automatics. The thing that surprises me is that, as I've said before, I don't know if we've talked about it, but the chassis of the automatics is like a tuning fork. I mean, it's fairly flimsy, right? And I know Nige came away with a bent chassis after running his modified car. I know that Mark Payne came away with a bent chassis on his stock car at the Hoodie Arena. And I'm not being critical to the car, because every car's got its strengths and its weaknesses, no doubt. And it certainly would appear that people have taken to it. I just wonder, it's an expensive car. I just wonder at the start, I mean, everyone has jumped to it. It's going to be really, really interesting come 12 months down the road, how many people are still using the automatics. Where do you sit on that? I'm sort of throwing it out there and being a bit controversial, and I don't mean to be. I'm not being derogatory towards the car. I just think that it's a very different style chassis, and they've got good success with people using it. I just wonder how many people will still be using it in a year. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their touring car platform, which is also, out there, and I don't know if it's fragile. I don't know that the 12's fragile either. But there's a ton of people using it, and it does really, really well. And the more people that use it, the better it does, and the more people end up using it. And I think the 12's probably the same way. I mean, we've nuked many a car, you and me. Like I've got umpteen. Well, I've thrown a few away in the last couple of weeks, but umpteen bent chassis, 2 Yokomo banana ones. I had a Roche that was bananaed, even some carbon fibre ones that were absolutely dead just from repeated smashing into things. So yeah, I don't know. A couple of people bending a chassis, I think, is quite normal. Yeah. In mod, super normal, right? That's what happens. So yeah, I would expect, as long as the UK boys keep on doing what they're doing, because I don't think there's anyone else, right? That's it. The UK team are kind of like the pinnacle of the automatics world from what I've seen, at least what's come across my Facebook screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they stick with it, and I can't see any reason why they wouldn't. James has got a really good approach to developing chassis. They work as a team.
Yeah.
One person stays as the control when someone else will try, and then other people will try different things so they know what direction to go in. They've got Mark there, who's obviously a great driver and had really good success over the summer. So yeah, I think it will just keep on going, strength to strength, and everything kind of, you either have something that's like way better than everything else, or they're all the same, really, right? There's nothing that's worse, really. Like David says, that car doesn't go any worse. We talked about the CRC before. I think that the CRC is probably as good as any car, but you've got to have the backing of people around you to make it work. Like I'm there with a Yokomo. No one has any idea how the car works, let alone me. So I'll probably be slow. If there was 10 guys running it and we had 10 meetings, it would probably be, as fast as the automatics.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good to get your take on that, and you make a really good point that James is really good at delegating. Even with sort of Mark Payne and Nigel Hale and they're the old associated team, aren't they? That they've kept together and they've moved on, and now they've got more people around them. And I think it's really good to see. It's really good to see like a good crop of guys, and there's some fresh faces. Bailey Graves was a guy using an Automatics running modified. I'd seen the name about, but I didn't know. I've never seen him at a 12 scale event, and
I didn't know who he was.
And he ran modified, and that was great. And obviously he could drive, and it's great. It's great to see. It is good to see, and I think, as you rightly say, you've clearly got a very good, or they've got a very good routine of trying to get the most out of the car on that day, with a lot of people doing tactically different stuff. You can accrue a lot of data very quickly, can't you, over 3-4 meetings, which they clearly have, and they're starting to get very strong with the drivers and how they're using that data.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, just going down the list. Obviously, there's James coming in at number 12. He did well. There was quite a tight group. There always is. I mean, from sort of 20th all the way up to arguably 7th. I know it says a couple of laps, but you know yourself, it really doesn't take too much to drop down or move up in these things. What do you think about the round by round formula?
You know I'm a fan. I think that that's the way to go. It's about consistency. Like, I read a race report from someone who was talking about Stuart Rand, talking about the GT12 National, and just talking about the tactics of basically round 1 and round 2 of practice, and round 3 is a banker just in case something goes wrong, and then it's all about round 4. And I think with 12 scale cars in particular, if you put your car down and you've done something wrong and it's tweaked, that's it. You've lost your chance to qualify when the track is at its best. But round by round, you've got way more chances, and things like when you're doing multi-day events as well, and you've got like the morning round on the second day might be like super fast for some reason. The humidity might have made the track fast, and if your car is set up for that particular thing, or what to do, then you can gain a lot of points by just being smart over a different window, rather than just, I'm hoping that my car works for this one round.
And you can see that. Look at the top 10. You wouldn't have expected anything that much different, whether it was going to be final FTQ or round by round.
Yeah.
So, but what you have done is you've made people further down the list have an even better time, haven't you? You've actually. Go on, sorry.
Start at 4th. Ignore the top 3 because they all did exactly what they were supposed to do every round.
Yeah.
And then you've got Aaron, right?
Yeah.
So he had an 8th. If that 8th came on the 4th round, he would have been stuffed, right? Who had Alex Robertson? It's like he's had an 11th, a 7th, a 10th, and an 8th, and that gave him 8th place. So it's like, actually, that worked out exactly what it would have been if it was FTQ, because he got 8th on the last round. Mark Jordan then 35th on the final round, and he was in the A.
Yeah.
So I think it's possibly fairer. I certainly find it a lot more engaging.
Yeah.
FTQ, you don't even bother looking at your times, do you? Until it's all done. So it's a waste. But there's all things to think about. It's like, a bit more of a thinking man's game, maybe. Yeah. Or ladies.
And so if we go further down again and start to tickle down, obviously notables there. I think it's nice to see Harry Jeffries getting faster and faster. Well, we all know the pedigree of him. It drove so nice all day, and when you think he's really a Glenn Atherton is no slouch. He can drive nicely. He's only a stone's throw really away from the Mark Rogers and Lee Mosses. I know he's a couple of laps down, but it doesn't take too much to just alter that with a 6 months or a year's worth of maturity.
Yeah.
In 8 minutes, you're not talking about a 5 minute run here. You're talking about an 8 minute run, which makes that 2 laps actually way smaller. A few more taps, a few more times around. Obviously, you can lose even more time. So that I thought that was really nice to see, and great to see Lewis Barker back as well. I mean, he'd been away from the sport, and he's come back and done a bit more racing, which was good to see. Didn't make the second day, but he certainly enjoyed himself. David Monswhite says there's quite a few of us moved to the A12. The team is happy to share knowledge with us non-sponsored mortals. Good to hear. Good to hear, and long may that continues, Dave. And then you've got to come on to the old modified. This is where the chat gets real for me. Well, I think you're absolutely right that modified is the way to go with 12 scale.
Yeah.
There is, after the weekend, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that all of this stock bollocks is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, okay, maybe I wouldn't go that far.
No. I would, and I'll tell you for why. Why. The cars now. So my Schumacher E4. I drove down the end of the straight, and I was a little bit sensitive. I was potentially over aggressive, bit too much left thumb on the straight. Was worried about turning in a little bit too sharp, and I went a little bit wide, and I hit the barrier at the end of the straight. I hit it 6 times, like really hard. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not talking a love tap. I'm talking about full from behind, no Vaseline, the lot. It was hard, and the thing just drove away. So I think the top of the pile is these cars are now a bit more bulletproof to take a good whack. So I think that's first things. I think that ultimately is what everybody's worried about, right? Sweeping them up at the end of the straight, getting your dust devil out and taking it home in a bag. Well, I gave mine a good clatter, and it was money. And then you look at the speed of it, because of how fast it is, it completely takes out the motor and the battery element, which you've always talked about and which we've talked about. And actually, who doesn't want to go faster? Well, if you don't want to go faster, just put a slower motor in it. It doesn't matter, because ultimately there could be people who will be for the same speed as the 13.5, and the adrenaline of it all. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous, and the piece, the resistance, the cake of it all was the car was easier to drive than a 13.5.
Yeah, which is the thing that I've kind of said all along, is that the car has steering.
Yeah.
You can steer it, and you can slow it down. Like, I feel like I'm hanging on to a 13.5 the whole time, trying to not let it slow down. I like 17.5 for some reason. I like proper mod for some reason, but the ones in the middle, not so much.
Yeah.
I think the 6.5 is. I think blinky makes everything aggressive. That's you've got to run it to be a bit switchy, right? Blinky makes it like that, and you can smooth it all out with boost.
Yeah, I've not run I've not run Blinky yet. So I said, I think we spoke on the phone, I'm gonna go in and run 6.5. It's like that was never happening. I just jammed a 3.5 in, and I just took it out. I think I got Hagberg's excuse me, set up from somewhere. Just stuck it in, and then just sort of tweaked it from there, really, and just sort of leant over to Alex and said, want a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. He said, I'll just do this, do that, and it worked out nicely. And with the stuff that I've done with Buggy, it was really very friendly. And so I there needs to be. I mean, you go put them in front of a bunch of guys, Buggy guys, or 8 scale guys or whoever, and you put the speed down of a 3.5 open, I mean, Christ almighty, they'd be jumping up and down, and then they know that they're not like tweaky and they're not finickety. You just stick them down. I mean, the class would explode. It would absolutely explode. So yeah. I was mightily impressed with the whole modified. Which I was really happy about. So there was good racing with.
There is one more part of that pie that I want to develop a little bit.
Do it.
So you've always said that there's no racing with mod, and Mark Stiles wrote something recently again saying we should bin mod because only a handful of guys can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely the wrong message.
Absolutely
I was watching
agree.
a bit of the New York GP, and I shared it with you earlier, and what you'd already seen. But there was real racing happening. Kazuki and Ollie just swapping positions. Ollie's pass on the, going onto the straight. It was just like, people are like, oh my God, how on earth can you do that? That's mod. People aren't racing.
Yeah.
And Kazuki driving around the outside of Ollie on one of the corners. It's just like, because the margins are exactly the same as they are in stock.
Yeah.
That you make a little mistake and the guy comes past. It's not, the guy has to crash or whatever. But yeah, so I think that you were wrong there. I just wanted to kind of rub that in.
Just get that in there, and I was, and you are
on your show.
and you are right to do that. You are absolutely right to do that because I was wrong. But what really pleased me. So, sorry to keep going back to this list, but I corrupted Mark Rogers, Andy Thompson, and Nigel Bowen to race modified, and Andy Thompson came away and saying, if there was a car, so when we were driving up, he said, I'll just bin the mod off if it starts to play up, because what Andy did was he ran a Roche, Ollie's Roche, or one, not Ollie's Roche, but one of Ollie's cars, as his modified car, and he ran his Schumacher E4 as his stock car. And he was worried that if he tweaked it, it wouldn't be able to set it in time because he's running 2 classes, etc. And actually, halfway into the practice day, he said, if my stock car breaks, or if either car breaks, I'm gonna absolutely stick with modified. I'm not gonna run stock. And for half a day, to go from being I'll bin the mod off to now being and he's only ever done it once.
Yeah.
That for me says it all. And Andy has done barely any racing for 6 months, and he came back to it, and we had some really good racing in practice. It was, it was so good. And Nige was the same. He was loving it. Again, got it a bit wrong at the end, broke a few parts, broke the front end of his car, bent his chassis, but he didn't know about the bent chassis, but he broke the front of the car. Well, I mean, it's modified and he got it wrong, but he went back out and he absolutely loved it. And Mark Rogers was the same, running his X-Ray. We had some great racing because I was in the bottom qualifier. We had some great runs, just a laugh and close and racing, and it was they absolutely loved it. So it was to see someone flip their opinion around so quickly. I was made up by that. So we went from only sort of 4 of us running to then 8 of us running, and unfortunately there was a few other pullouts, so we would have had probably 10 or 12 people running modified. But to see, those guys have such a good time with it, it was really great fun.
Yeah, the only scary part ever is when there isn't enough people and you're in the A final.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing, because the closing speeds and the time that you've got to get out of the way is much less, and that is hard. And that's the only thing. The rest of it, I mean, me and Mark Rogers did the World Champs. Right?
Yeah.
We were in modified for the World Championships, and it's like actually, and being on a massive track like that with all that grip, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, it honestly isn't anything to be scared about. I'm nowhere near, good at 12 scale, and I have way more fun with mod than stock.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to enter the world wherever it is supposed to be in America, and I'm definitely going to do modified. I just
Perfect.
because it is absolutely my new passion. It's like I came off the track of the week and I just said stock's dead to me. It's like
Brilliant.
stock is dead because it's like I see Dave Spashett and I see Dave Spashett go around, and I went down the straight and he outdragged me. I mean, it was like my car was battery flat, and I'm not having it because I've got pretty good motors and I've got pretty good batteries. And honestly, down the straight, couldn't touch him. It was like it just drove around me. So at that point, it's like I know he's a great driver, no doubt about that, but he's got access to stuff that I simply can't get, and so therefore it feels like there's a blocker there, and I can't cope with that. Whereas modified, I'm sure there is still motor advantages and stuff like that, but it feels like it's way more down to thumbs than buying good motors and good batteries.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if we asked David about that, if he would say that the reason he outdragged you on the straight is because he's a better driver at getting onto the straight.
I couldn't, yeah, and maybe he would say that, but I've watched the videos a lot, and from corner to corner, ridiculous. The energy that his car's got. Look, I'm not saying anything other than he's got really good equipment, but I saw him drive around with Mark Stiles and drove away from Mark.
Yeah,
it's like, how'd you do that in a stock class? Make a car look so ridiculously much faster than another car. I don't know. Anyway, that's stock racing, isn't it? That's You go out to America, you go and race against Jeff Dager, Trinity guy. You go and race against him. You go and Andrew Knapp. It's like, man, I can't get anywhere near you. The horsepower that you've got is just relentless. And I drove in at Chesterfield, and Morgan Williams was behind me in qualifying. Well, I tell you what, his car, honestly, it was ridiculous. His car, he would have driven around me, around every single bend with the amount of horsepower he had. Now, whatever it is, that's what stock racing delivers, doesn't it? That unfortunate part that you've got to get stuff really, really good to have that edge in stock racing. But with modified, not the case, is it?
No. I mean, you've got too much power most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. So let's have a little look. I want to run a video past you, and I'm going to try and best I can do this, which is stretching my technical ability on OBS here. For those of you that don't know what software I use to put all this nonsense together. So here we've got up on the screen here is the race and the final at the A final, the first A final, and there was a bit of a issue down the straight. So bottom right hand corner, I've just stopped it, and there we go. It's now caught up. You've got Ollie coming onto the straight, I believe, yeah. And so that's Mark Stiles, the first car, Ollie Payne, the second car. Now, what's happened? I've been racing around with Alex Robertson, and I've been racing really closely behind him, and I've given him a couple of taps because I'm like trying to get past him. But every time I've tapped him, I've backed off. But this time I've tapped him a little bit too much, and I've pulled over. And so you'll see the furthest green car is me. Yeah, got that?
Yeah.
And the closest green car is Mark Jordan. Now, if you look on the top right hand corner, you can see that neither Alex or I are in the top 6, top 5.
Yeah.
So I've waited for Alex because I've tapped him off. So I've waited for him to come back on. Now Alex has given it full beans. And this is what I meant by he's perhaps a little bit green, but we've all been there and I'm probably still there. So I've waited for him. So now Alex has now hit the accelerator and he's now driven up the back of me, and I'm just going to wait for it to catch up. And there we go. Can you see he's now driven up the back of me? And you can see that the car to the right of him is Mr. Payne, who is lapping, and he's having a race with Dave Spashit. Dave is the yellow car behind him, in fact. And so there's Alex going across the track, taking out Ollie. And all gets a little bit unpleasant. And of course, Ollie's in the lead, leg one. So off he goes. And if I now perhaps zoom in just a little bit further so we can get a nice close up down the end of the straight, because I think that's really quite important. Because this is where my badness comes in. So I can see Dave is coming up. I can see Dave is coming up behind me. Let me just pull this back here. So I could. So I pulled it back. So there's me on the inside. There is Dave on the outside. There's Ollie, and then there's Alex. Now I've pulled to the side to let Dave through. It feels like I've got nowhere to go. So then there's Dave getting past. Now I'm in sort of no man's land. And you'll see that. There goes Dave. And you can see I'm hugging the inside rail.
Yeah.
Then I stop there. And unfortunately, I was expecting Ollie to see me. And unfortunately, he collects me. And unfortunately, that was sort of the end of his race in that. But what I do like is Jody Sherritt, who's marshalling at the end of the straight. Look at him. Watch, this is beautiful. Up his hands go.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of an unsavoury situation, and Ollie lost his rag and stormed off the rostrum at the end. I mean, understandably so, but and I've been known to storm off a bit of a rostrum, but it's one of those things. So I'm just going to play it in full speed now, and transition it over and play it in full speed, and let you see it. Well, not quite full speed, but you'll see the full affair go on, which is all a bit nasty.
Yeah.
Yes.
The highlight of all that. I mean, with hindsight, you shouldn't have moved, should you? You should have just stopped where you were. But at that speed.
Yeah, stopping on the straight. It's like stopping on the straight or hugged around.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
watching it back, it's like the only thing. Like knowing that there was a crash because you moved.
Yeah.
You'd say, "Oh, don't move." But at the time, you're like, "What on earth do I do here? I'm in the way."
It's like...
But Ollie's save of the first crash is incredible. I mean, that's some God driving to get it back after being smashed on the straight. So,
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate for Ollie. It's a shame.
Yeah, and of course we went into the second final, which is the reverse grid final, and I was like second because I was qualified 9th. So standing on the rostrum, and I think this is not a Dave Spashit bashing moment, by the way, but on the driver's stand, his words were, "This is not racing, Stuart." Like reverse grid, this is not racing. And Ollie chirps up and says, "Oh man, I've qualified first and I'm now last." And I said, "Suck it up, Buttercup. It is what it is. It's a different format, and just get on with it." That's what I said to them. And it was like the whole weekend there was no refereeing, like as in no technical inspection. And I would be shocked if someone wasn't using a motor that they shouldn't have been using, because I overheard some conversations by some people. and then all of a sudden it's like where we were having a nice time, all of a sudden it's got the ante's gone up, right? Like all of a sudden this is no fun anymore. Like the chips are down, and I was just like, and I walked away from it, and I thought, do you know what? That's exactly why the hobby has stayed where it is, because the conformity of this is the way it looks, this is the way it needs to be, and that's it. And it feels like that is still the underbelly of 12 scale, that it needs to be one final, four qualifiers, round by round, practice, Saturday, Sunday, blah blah blah. That is just the shape of the way 12 scale looks in the UK, and it was like that in that microsecond on the rostrum. It's like, this is new. This is something you've not done before, David. You're racing for cash. You're probably going to win some money. XYZ. It's like, and I think it just drew out his true colours of that. Ultimately, he is absolutely a racer at heart, and he absolutely wants to win. And all the bravado of, oh, I don't think I can do very well, I haven't been practicing, blah, 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 blah. It's all bravado, and I never buy into any of it, because once you're a competitor, you're always a competitor. But I just think it thwarts the hobby, because you've got influential people in at the top of the tree, people like Peter Winton, people like Dave, people like the chairman, whatever the numpty's name is, Darren Newton. You've got those people at the tops of the tree, in my humble opinion, and I'm allowed my opinion because that's freedom of speech. That are holding the reins on something that could be so brilliant. And then you look at something like RC Vision, with they're doing with their equality and STEM programming and all of this stuff, and yet we're then going to get them in, and then we're just going to like hold them back and say, no, this is the way it's always been, we're not going to actually let it grow. So it was getting this off my chest, but this is was like a moment of the weekend where actually this is the future. This sort of stuff is the future of the hobby, not this isn't racing. So it was just interesting. So that was my take. How does it sit with you? Don't have to necessarily be as bashing as I've been there, and I mean no disrespect for it. My passion is to get the hobby big, get hundreds of people doing this thing. I just think that there needs to be a changing of the tide still.
Yeah, I think that David talking about the destiny kind of summed it up for me when he said we need more people doing 12 scale, and that has to start at the club level. So having a car ideally suited to club racing.
Agreed.
In the Zen, and I guess the Schumacher's the same. I haven't actually looked at an E4, but I'm guessing it's the same as the old ones used to be. Very much a GT12 kind of basis. I think that's the answer. I don't really think that the format of nationals or the old guard necessarily is the problem. I mean, I got into 12 scale from GT12, and I bought a 12 scale just because I wanted one, and I thought that they were really cool, and I didn't actually have anywhere to run one really. And then West Kent, had 12, and I went along to that, and then Steve Payne just said, "Are you going to come to nationals?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't think so." He was like, "Well, you should." And then that was that.
Yeah.
So the leap from club racing to nationals was really easy once you knew a couple of people at a club race, and they were welcoming, and that's it. So I think that building club level stuff, and I don't know how to do that beyond it just being a little bit easier and whatnot, and then and people just being welcoming and not being shit. Like, I was thinking about this. There was I won't talk about this too much if it's not something that you bring up. There was something happened in New York where some heavy words and possibly some physical contact happened between a couple of people, and I just thought
this time just gone.
Yeah, and I just thought to myself, like, if someone had laid their hands on me, like I wouldn't have been happy about it, and it could have ended up, pretty bad. Like I probably would have not been allowed to race anymore or whatever, right? And that person probably wouldn't allowed to be racing anymore. And it's just like, it's just a fucking hobby at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I know that, and what you say about David is absolutely right. He is a competitor. And we know this, right? Like, you are also a competitor, and that makeup, that drive to do well is inbuilt, and you can't really do much about it. But it's when it boils over from moving your hands around on a transmitter to other things is where it becomes a problem. And we've all had people effing and jeffing at meetings and all of that. And that's the stuff, I think we probably even talked about this the last time I was on. That's the stuff that kind of needs to go away. And we're all just people trying to have a good time. And that's the thing. Now, for the guys who are being, crowning a national champion and all that was what we talked about last time. Like, it is a serious business, right? And it is a business, right? David needs winning to put food on his table. I know you don't really subscribe to the whole win on Sunday, sell on Monday thing, but there is that aspect of it as well. And I think that 12 scale is small, is small, and because of that, we're really exposed to that side of it. Like we've spoken to David, Ollie, Andy, whoever, at like the top levels of driving, and we get to hear about things, right? We get to hear about, I don't know, like politics and all of that. And I think that David was kind of moving away from that. Like the thing he was saying about the car being a destiny, right?
Yeah.
It's not a Zen car. Trying to move away from that Zen versus Schumacher rivalry, which makes great business sense, but also from we are just all doing the same thing. And at some point, you're going to be driving one of those other cars. Someone who had a Schumacher will drive a Zen or a Destiny. Someone who had a Automatic will be driving a Roche. And it all goes around and it all gets, forgotten about. 4 years down the line, no one will remember that, this guy was using that or whatever. So the short version is make it easy to do at club, make there more clubs doing it, and then just be welcoming of people.
Yeah, I agree. And my drive is to fill the halls. I mean, fill the halls with people that want to do it and making the cars easier to drive, but having a format that also caters for the people that have been doing it a while. People that are doing it a while. If someone said to me, there's an event on that's going to run 3 finals round by round on a day, and then there's a national event that's going to do 4 rounds of FTQ and a final, I absolutely wouldn't go in for the national. I'd go in for the event that holds something different.
Yeah.
And so if there is no other option, and the format is the same the way it as always is, you are going to bleed out people that have been doing it for a while, I think, because I think people need new challenges and new options. That's really all I'm saying, and it feels blinkered that we can't do that, we can't try that, and people will come back with, you need to put it forwards and all that kind of stuff. We've been all there with that, but that's by the by. There's some photos I wanted to share because I think sort of sums up what the weekend was about. Obviously, the guru was there, Mr. Hagberg, and this was a picture that really grabbed my attention. Seeing little Harry Jeffries looking at Alex go around, and then a packed rostrum. You see Ollie Jeffries sitting down underneath the rostrum there, checking out his son's car going around. And I think the winner of the week was the track. I think we don't appreciate how good a facility it is. Grip was high. Yeah, we got that huge shop there. We've got a great pitting area, and MB is someone that certainly bends over backwards to host my event, and I'm sure others. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to put something on and to get the support of a lot of the racers that came along and did race. I know they all really enjoyed the the Friday practice. And it was interesting. I spoke to Mark Payne because we're going to go and do Masters of Foam, and he talked about people not doing the weekend because they couldn't necessarily do the Friday. And he said, and I said, I would assume that people didn't do the Friday because they felt like they were behind the curveball of people that would have practiced on the Friday and then raced on the Saturday. And he said, oh, well, they absolutely would have been. That's a fact. And I guess I probably didn't necessarily pay as much attention to that as possibly I should have done. But he said it actually took him 6 runs to get on pace with Nigel Hale, which is the guy that he runs alongside. And I thought that was quite an interesting statistic, that 6 times around the track, he then got on pace with Nigel.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether that would be the case for everyone, or
no.
if you would have picked Nigel's car up, and depending on where they end up setting wise, if they picked Nigel's car up and stuck it on Mark's car and they went out, would it have still been 6 runs, or did it take him 6 runs to go from where he started his car setup to where it eventually ended up? You look like you're checking something out there.
I am, because Stuart Rand, who we've already mentioned, I believe that at the Eastbourne National, he didn't do the Saturday and he only did the Sunday. Now, where are we?
Interesting.
I don't know how this website works. Results. You carry on talking, Stu, because this could.
Yeah, and so I think I did a little count up tonight before we came on air about how many views the weekend has got since we kicked off on the Friday. That's workshops, that's practice coverage, that's finals coverage. What do you think? I don't know if you've checked viewing figures. What do you think was the number 1 viewed video of the whole weekend? Of all the workshops, all the practice, of all the finals, which do you think was top of the tree?
Mod A final.
Incorrect.
Go on.
It was David Spashett's Destiny.
Well, I watched it twice, so that might.
Did you? That's interesting. So he's had just over 1,100 views.
Wow.
Yeah. And Alex Hagberg and his X1223 car has had just under 600 views. So he's had double the amount of views. And David, very nicely, look, I love David, and I bash him because I know he can take it because he's a competitor, because he's a hardened competitor. So whatever I say, I would say to his face, and I have said to his face. So please, if anyone watching this is not about bashing anyone. This is about getting the hobby better. But David carries so much weight, and I think it's proof in itself. And he came over to me and he shook my hand and he said, on the back of that video, he had sold 4 kits within a couple of hours.
Amazing.
And for me, I had to take a moment because I got a bit of a lump in my throat, because for me, that was what it's all about. This is absolutely non-profit. It cost me money the whole week. I put my own hard graft money in it and my own time and the effort. And it's all about the passion of the hobby. But to hear someone sell kit on the back of a silly little 30-minute workshop, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I think it just shows the power of this hobby and what we can do using the mediums that we've got open to us and the reach we have. So the viewing is over 6,500 views from the 3 days in MB Model since it was done, which is great. And the channel's revenue is going up. It's like £50 a month now, which is great. We spoke today. You remember when it was 47p a month,
yeah.
But you know, and as I've said all along, it's about sticking it back in and putting on these race events to hopefully make people enjoy it more. Have you done your research? Now
I
I've
have.
filled.
Now, I want to complain a little bit first. BRC website, went on the results, 404 error. It's like, that website needs throwing away.
Matt Kemble says he's building his Destiny car right now.
Nice. I'm jealous. I wish I had.
Do you know what? I've worked so hard at not buying one. I don't know what David does, but those freaking pictures with the JFTs on it and the carbon and man.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Go on.
Cool. Right, so qualifying round 1 on the Sunday.
So this is Stuart Rand, who was not raced.
I don't know, a birthday party or something.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
So he's in F3, which is not, but so he's in the F2 thing. He qualifies second, a lap up on third place. That's round 1. That's the second time he's put the car down.
Wow.
That weekend. So yeah. Sorry, Mark Payne, but Stuart Rand is better at getting used to a track
than you.
But it's interesting. I mean, there might be something in that. Like, so presumably Stuart's turned up and has been given, a setup.
Yeah.
That they know will work for him. So we don't know what Mark did. Maybe he was trying something out or whatever. But yeah, interesting. So yeah, well, that's the first time my memory has worked in a while and come up with something useful. So
good to see that I've sparked some life in that brain box of yours.
Might because I was using it all day.
So you're coming out of the closet with your 12th scale.
I am, to race stock
at the Eastbourne EFRA GP.
Yes.
Now I don't know what the format is for that. Is it?
I was about to ask you.
Fuck knows. I mean, I don't know. I'll be lucky if I'm going to race now after everything I've said tonight.
I'm not entirely sure that I care what the format is, to
be
honest. I just want to, like I say, I'm running my Yokomo. I've undone all the ridiculous stuff that I did to it before the National that made it basically undrivable. People are going to me, your car looks really hard to drive. I wish they'd tried it because it was unbelievably crap. It's like the worst thing I've ever driven. And I'm really proud of myself for making it look like it was actually a car rather than just like a turd on a stick. But yeah, I've gone back to like something that used to work. So I've got a setup that I ran at club racing with a spool when no one was running spools.
Yeah.
And yeah, I looked in my notes and it was like ran it at West Kent with a spool in it and it was fine. So it will probably be super slow at some point. It will get me started because I haven't touched my transmitter for since February, I guess.
Did you see the video that Alex Hagberg talked about when you should get your transmitter serviced or renewed?
No, mine is brand new. It's done about 4 hours of use.
Well, Alex Hagberg says when you've had 70 hours of use, you need a new transmitter.
Well, I'm a long way off that. I doubt I'll ever get 70 hours of use. Although I did use it for drifting. The one drift meeting that I went to. So.
I'm not mentioning that drift car that you bought because I think
money was spent. But winter is coming up, and I'm driving past the track on my way home from karate. So
fancy going sideways. Matt Kemble has just said I messaged them yesterday. 3 practice and 2 qualifying on the Saturday. And on the so 3 practice and 2 qualifiers on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday 2 qualies and 3 finals, obviously subject to change.
Got to be round by round then.
Well, I hope it's round by round.
I think it has to be. If you're doing it over 2 days, it's I don't see how you could do FTQ.
Yeah. Tony Wade is on. He's just chirped in. You know what's happened to him? That boy's gone E4. No, he's gone Destiny at Tamworth.
Mm.
He's gone E3 at Chesterfield. He's then gone E4 at Eastbourne. Then he's gone E4 MB Models. And then he's gone back to Destiny at
Amazing.
Eastbourne last weekend. That boy, he won't learn. He won't learn.
There's a chance that I might run a Destiny at Eastbourne.
I think you should.
But the old one.
The old one.
So before this happened,
get out of here, Ant.
I said to Matt Baker, I don't know what sparked it. Probably me reading Japanese nonsense, and I just said to Matt Baker, "You still got your Destiny?" He said, "Yeah, it's in a cupboard. I'll send it to you." So yeah, there is a possibility of that.
Oh, we'll do that. Do that because you could have 3 rounds of qualifying. You could have 3 rounds of practice. You could have 1 qualifier, throw it in the bin, and then and then get the Yokomo out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps not.
That's what I would recommend. And Ant says volume, your volume's a little bit low. No one else has complained. Your volume's too low, Tony. All right, listen. We've done over an hour, and I normally strictly stick to an hour, but I've given you eight minutes of extra time because I miss having you on this show. Will you promise to come back on here soon?
Sure.
Because I miss having you on the show. I
sort of miss being on the show as well.
You don't have to blow smoke up my ass.
No. I mean, if I was lying, I would just say, yeah, I really enjoy it still. I can't wait to come back. But yeah, I find it a little bit stressful.
I find it stressful every evening. Every time I go on, it's like, is all the tech going to work? Is the that's the bit that stresses me out.
You know what I'm worried about? People talking about me tomorrow.
Fuck them.
After the last one, I got so much shit.
Did you?
From people that didn't listen. Yeah. Oh God. I got the ump big time. To the point. I got the ump to the point that I was thinking about doing some touring car, and afterwards decided I wasn't going to do touring car, and I probably wasn't going to do much else other than a bit of 12, because I really did have the ump with some of the comments.
Really?
So, there you go.
What with
no, that's as far as I'm.
No. I don't want to know names. But it was what people messaged you from what you said on the.
People posted things on Facebook, which I wouldn't have seen because I don't really look at any of it, because I have my, 30 seconds of looking at Facebook before I get the ump.
Yeah.
But someone had tagged me in it. Like, I don't know whether they were meaning well or just being a fucking shit stirrer. But I was reading it and it's like, I don't know. It was like, I don't know what on earth you're commenting on, but you obviously haven't listened to what I've said, and you've got it arse upwards and fuck touring cars, basically. Well,
Basil Airbrush, who has never commented on any of my streams before, so he's clearly a secret subscriber, who has just retracted his statement. That's brilliant. So his comment just before you said you can shove TC up your ass. He said before he said that, he said, "Please stick with TC Ant." He's then retracted that, and then he's just put in, "Please stick with LMP Ant."
George is a fun guy. I like him.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Good for you, Basil. He's still spraying and painting, isn't he? Excellent. I love that shit. Listen, we'll end it here. I'm off to Masters of Phone in 2 weeks' time. Got all the coverage. You're going to be watching?
Oh, yeah. Only if, actually, on one condition.
Yeah.
You can swing past my house on your way and bring those tyres that you've got, please.
The Ulti tyres,
Yeah,
of course,
done. I'll watch it all then.
of course. Just for you.
Thank you.
Only if you... I'll have G and Mark Payne with me. That's the only downside.
Nice.
Yeah. So Mark might have a go at you because you've said that he's super slow after on a track.
All the best. It's like he's bringing his mates.
Just get your machete ready. And my friend, it's lovely to catch up with you, and thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I look forward to speaking soon, probably in a few minutes, and all of tomorrow. All right, Ant. Look after yourself, pal.
Cheers.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye. Well, that was super lovely to have Ant on the show. I sincerely hope you enjoyed that. I know I ran on a bit, and no offence was meant in the making of this video. My passion for the hobby and all classes is comes from the heart, and sometimes I potentially push the envelope a little bit. So if I offended people, I apologise. I never wish to do that, but I'm passionate about getting this hobby bigger and better, and I think that's all it comes from. So anyhow, hopefully you've enjoyed this evening's debrief. I'm going to have a think about whether I'm going to do one next week. I'm going to be getting ready for Masters of Foam. I'm going to be doing all the official coverage of that all weekend. That's going to be the 28th to the 30th of October. And all being well, we'll do maybe a bit of a YouTube live on the evening of the 27th. I'm travelling over with Mark and G. It's going to be a cracking few days there. I'm really looking forward to that, doing a bit of modified and stock racing. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to do the Andy Murray interview. Maybe I'll do that next week. See if we can get Andy on the show. That'd be good to do that. And I didn't get a chance to cover that at the 12th GP. The 12th GP is going to happen again. That is going to happen next year at the potentially the same venue. I've had some inquiries about another venue, but stay tuned for that, because that would be great to have everyone along to that and try and make that bigger and better going forwards. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show this evening. If you have, like it, subscribe, share with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you all trackside soon.